Good morning, folks. 6th of November, Sunday. Clean shaven. Kind of burns. I didn't put any aftershave on afterwards. I use soap rather than the nice shave leather I bought myself for my birthday. I kind of like to save that for a date. Problem is, I don't have any dates anymore. I'm kind of happy with that. I give up on women at this point in my life. I look back at it, and if I had to give myself any advice, I would have said, leave them alone, focus on yourself, discipline yourself, study hard, make something of yourself, and accomplish things very early in life, as early as you can. And I think I would have had set for my goals to maybe own my own house at age 25. Of course, then a woman would have come along and taken it away from me. But anyway, what I want to tell you about is, methinks thou doth protest too much. Okay? My name is Dr. John Taylor Kent, and we're going to be talking about the sociopathy of the Democratic Party, because it's just before the election, and you need to know this. A sociopath has no conscience. They gaslight you all the time. They think several steps ahead of you. So when you discover them, or should you just counter them slightly, they have plans already in place. They go right to them. They always think evil. They conjure up evil. In the case of the sociopaths running the country, we can now say it's institutionalized sociopathy. We can say the Democratic Party and large swaths of the Republican Party. We can also definitely say the FBI, the Department of Justice, and now DHS, the Department of Homeland Security. We've got an Iranian-American national billionaire who set up all of this spy stuff on us. And like a good sociopath, he pretends he's for freedom and privacy of the people. He has foundations set up for that, just for that, to make him look like a good guy, but he's not a good guy. He's a bad guy. Him and his wife have set up a lot of this censorship that we're having to go through with these organizations today. I did discover something kind of interesting, and I want to share that with you. Something a little bit on the positive side. I've been having some questions about things that are in the Bible, and usually I just open it up and read it to get to it. But there's some things that I haven't been able to figure out where to look exactly on my own. And I just come up with the idea that just ask Google. Ask Google questions about the Bible. If you really want to change things, ask Google questions about what is in the Bible. Don't believe at least half of what you're going to get in response, but let Google know that's what you're thinking about. Cliff Eye. Cliff Eye is a wonderful man. Cliff Eye is about the same age I am. I think we're within a couple of years of each other. His father was also a military officer. We both lived at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas at some point in time, because his dad went to the War College and mine did as well. Cliff Eye has a technology in which he does searches on the internet, searching for terms. And the theory, if I understand it properly, is that he's measuring the collective unconscious of humanity. And the collective unconscious of humanity knows the future. And so whatever pops up in his search engines, whatever the algorithms are, whatever the tools are, whatever the spiders that go through the internet for him, they come up with the prevailing terms on the collective consciousness of humanity, and from that he can tell you what the future is going to be. How accurate is he? He hasn't been nearly 100% accurate. He's got some accuracy. He does have his finger on the pulse somewhat. I think he's got some good stuff. I suggest you check out Cliff Eye for sure. He will tell you about the Khazarians, and that's a good thing. Veterans Today is another one you can turn to. That's a good thing as well. I've got a psychologist there, Preston James, I believe is his name. He'll tell you about the Khazarian Mafia, term coined by a fellow who ran for governor in the state of Arizona one time. He's now taken refuge up in Canada. He went to Oregon first. Boy, I can't blame anybody for leaving Oregon. What a mess that state is. Every state is a mess right now. The sociopaths are running it all. They love power. They love to lie and deceive. They love to take advantage of the rest of us. And they take advantage of our good-natured training from Christianity. You see, a sociopath understands all the rules of society. They understand the unwritten contract, the social contract, the psychological contract that exists. They understand what's expected. And when they read you down, they know how you're going to react. So they play you. Like a damn fish in the water, they play you. That's all you are to them. You are prey. They are predators. Examples of sociopaths: George Soros, Bill Gates, this guy from Iran, Omidyar or something like that. I can't remember his name. He lives between Hawaii and Nevada. The Bush family. They've lied to you so much it's not funny. Bill Clinton is a very talented sociopath. And what the sociopath does is they do hide their tracks quite well. And they require you to adhere to the social contract while they break it every which way they can. A feature of sociopathy, and I would call this being sociopic rather than being a sociopath. In other words, exhibiting the traits and features of a sociopath rather than being a full-blown sociopath. They will scream bloody murder while they're beating the shit out of you. They will attack you and scream to the rest of the world how you have beaten on them. That was part of my family dynamic, by the way. I'm very sensitive to that, and one of my commands is thou shalt not take part in bad scenes, which means if there's any abuse, I'm out of there. I tolerate a little bit of it, but not very much. Thou, methinks thou doth protest too much, which means basically you're showing me that you're the guilty one. You're showing me that you're a sociopath. You're showing me what you are. And that is what the Democratic Party is doing to their base. And they seem to love it and enjoy it. And they do that to their own people. And they're willing to commit murder. Seth Rich was not murdered by a MAGA Republican, I can assure you that. And Mr. Pelosi, may he heal quickly and completely, he wasn't beat by a MAGA Republican either, I can assure you that. You see, most of us actually live by the Word, the Bible. And there's word in here I don't agree with. I don't like Paul very much. He doesn't punctuate things properly. I don't like the way he writes. It's hard to understand him. Sometimes I've accused him of being on LSD. He's got a phrase in here. And I have to look it up. And I have to be reminded of it. And I live it as best I can. And when I live it, I get rewarded on the spot. And that is, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. And it's actually a little bit of length to the passage. It's a few verses. I'm not going to go to it. I don't know exactly where it is in the book of Romans. But I can assure you this, that whenever I get pissed off and I want to strike back, I don't. I should, but I don't. It won't always be that way. If I can take direct defense, make a direct defense effort, I'll do it. But the fact is that the sociopaths gaslight us. They manipulate those in our environment so they look like the victims. That is the telltale sign of it. And another telltale sign, probably the biggest one, is the pity party. Why the pity party? Because when they have you feeling sorry for them, you drop your defenses, and then they can go right in after you. So in a matter of speaking, you drop your shields, and then they can go in and take advantage of you. They do that all the time. One of the incredible things about the con man and the con job is that he will give you some sort of an indication that what you're doing isn't right, or what is going on, or what he's trying to get you to do isn't right. And so he'll talk about how you can get unearned gains, unfair gains, how you can come out ahead in some deal or other. And then he will execute his con upon you and steal from you. And if he's caught, he'll say, well, you went for it. You showed that you were a bad person, so I just finished the job. That's the Democrat Party today. They're a bunch of sociopaths. It's the sociopathic party. They commit murder. How many dead people are there around the Clintons? What about Seth Rich? Even the FBI is busy covering up Seth Rich's murder. Off the counter! Bad girl. That's all right. She's been up there before, and I didn't catch her the first time when she got my bacon the other morning. And she actually went in and took celery out of the sink to chomp on it. She'll eat damn near anything. I gave her a piece of apple. She eats it. Carrots, that I understand. Celery, I don't get that. Anyway, she can go hungry a bit. I probably should be training her more. And it's my fault she lacks this discipline. Methinks thou doth protest too much, which basically reveals you're the guilty party. And so right now they're protesting about MAGA Republicans. Right. Like we actually did an insurrection on the 6th of January. What kind of bullshit is that? The world knows we didn't do any kind of an insurrection. Perhaps there was a counterintelligence operation. In other words, Nancy Pelosi set that bullshit up and pulled it off herself. I think she actually ordered the death of Ashley Babbitt. From my understanding, she gave a command out to the security that somebody had to be sacrificed. And that the officer, the gentleman who took Ashley Babbitt's life, replied to the Queen, the Wicked Witch of the West, understood something to the effect, confirming that he was going to go ahead and pull the trigger and kill somebody. You see, they had to have that death so they could call it a riot. It's not a riot if there's no dead bodies. Okay? It's one of the things I learned working in the penitentiaries. A riot is when there are bodies on the ground. There was no riot there. And from what I see, the FBI was in there meddling, and the FBI should be dismantled as fast as possible. DHS needs to be dismantled as fast as possible. There's no saving these organizations. There's no sense even investigating them except to hand it to the military. Give it to the military and order military tribunals. Yes, we are at that point. And I think anything short of that, like having a congressional investigation with this Congress? Are you kidding? It's not even a constitutional Congress. This is not what our founders gave us. That Senate is even more of a botchery of the Constitution. The Senate's supposed to represent the state governments. It was the state governments that authorized the existence of the federal government, the Constitution, and the Bill of Rights. And they have had no representation for decades. So, in case you're worried about your democracy, I think you better worry a little bit more about your republic, because it's been gone for more than a half a century. We do need to understand this Bible better. You need to understand something. Our founders were all educated on this book. They knew the book. It was their first reader. It was their primer. This is what they were schooled in. If you want to save this republic, I suggest you follow the wonderful model of our founders. I suggest you educate yourself. Links down below. Go buy one of my Bibles. Sit and read it. Pay attention to the first 5 books. The first book in particular. We've got to go over that stuff. And you think that America is not in the Bible. You hang on a second. America certainly is in the Bible. It's foretold in the Bible. It's in Genesis towards the end. There's 2 sections, 2 passages that are particularly important. And that is when Israel, the man, Israel is a people. It's not a geographical piece of land. I really should have prepared this before, but I did not do that. And I apologize for that. Genesis chapter 48, verse 5. Israel speaking to his son Joseph. And now your 2 sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, which are born to you in the land of Egypt, before I came to you into Egypt, are mine. As Reuben and Simeon, they shall be mine. Israel adopted Ephraim and Manasseh. So if anybody talks about the 12 tribes of Israel, this is the 13th. This is how you get the proper 13 tribes. You've got the 2 sons of Joseph. There is no tribe of Joseph. Genesis chapter 48, verse 14. And Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it upon Ephraim's head, who was the younger, took his hand and went across and laid it on Ephraim's head. And left his left hand upon Manasseh's head, guiding his hands wittingly, for Manasseh was firstborn. So, I'm not reading this quite right. This is a new version of the Bible for me as well. I've got 15 years, 16 years of Bible reading. This Bible's only been out 5 years. I've had it for maybe 3 years, 2 years. Israel said to Joseph, and I thought not to see your face. And behold, God has shown me also your seed. And Joseph brought them out from between his knees, and he bowed himself with his face to the earth. And Joseph took both of them, Ephraim in his right hand, toward Israel's left hand, and Manasseh in his left hand toward Israel's right hand, and brought them near to him. You see, Joseph wanted the blessing on the oldest boy, Ephraim. And Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it upon Ephraim's head, who was the younger, and his left hand upon Manasseh's head, left his hand upon Manasseh's head. So that would have been the left hand. Guiding his hands wittingly, knowingly. For Manasseh was the firstborn. And he blessed Joseph and said, God, before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac did walk, the God which fed me all my life long unto this day, the angel which redeemed me from all evil, bless the lads, and let my name be named on them, and the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. And when Joseph saw that his father laid his right hand upon the head of Ephraim, it displeased him. And he held up his father's hand to remove it from Ephraim, said to Manasseh's head. And Joseph said to his father, Not so, my father, for this is the firstborn. Put your hand upon his head. And his father refused, and said, I know it, my son, I know it. He also shall become a people, and he also shall be great. But his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. I still don't get it to this day. Let me admit that right now. And he blessed them that day, saying, In you shall Israel bless, saying, God make you as Ephraim and as Manasseh. And he set Ephraim before Manasseh. It gets crossed up one way or the other, doesn't it? Keeps changing places, in my mind anyway. And Israel said to Joseph, Behold, I die, but God shall be with you and bring you again to the land of your fathers. Moreover, I have given you one portion above your brothers, which I took out of the hand of the Amorite with my sword and with my bow. In the original King James, this is written slightly different. And so basically, one was going to become a multitude of nations. An empire of nations, if I remember the King James. And the other one was going to be the great nation. The United States of America became the great nation. Ephraim became a company of nations, an empire, the British Empire. That's what I believe. I'm not certain. I've got a brother who says it's the other way around. He's about the same age as I am. He can be right. I don't mind that. The seed blessing was going to come across one of the two, and that would be with the younger, with Manasseh. It's interesting how when the Israelites were taken into captivity, the prophet told them that they would forget who they were, and instead of being named after their father Israel, they would be named after his father being Isaac. They're known as Saxons today, Isaac's sons. This is pretty important stuff. The prevailing brainwashing, the way in which I was raised to believe, and what they taught in the churches, really is not that biblically based. It was mostly these professional pastors out of the seminaries that told us the wrong stuff. You see, in my estimation, just looking at history, I think that by 1850, all the seminaries have been taken over. And the Bible translators, for the most part, have been taken over. I think at this point that Ptolemy II, 275 BC, producing the Septuagint, because most of the Israelites were in dispersion, most of the 10 tribes having been removed by Assyria, and having freed themselves after defeating the Medes and the Babylonians, joining with the Medes to go after the Babylonians, as a matter of fact, they broke into Europe. That would have been probably around 650 BC. And so by the time Ptolemy came around, you had to translate this Bible that was written mostly in Aramaic and Hebrew into Greek so that your people could read it and understand it. And during that translation, Ptolemy II removed the name Yahweh and replaced it with a generic God, capitalizing it, I guess, giving it some superiority over the lesser God with a small g. But they used a category rather than a proper name. Let's go over to Exodus chapter 20. At least I know where this is. I can talk about this a little bit better. We're going to go to the Ten Commandments right now. Why are we going to do this? We're going to do this because you need to know this stuff. These are the terms that our forefathers agreed to, and they apply to you and me. And I'm going to prove it today, right now. Exodus 20. And God spoke all these words, saying, I am Yahweh your God, which brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. First commandment. Now, the word am is in italics, meaning it is added for clarification. It's not in the original text. So allow me to read the original text. I, Yahweh, your God, which brought you out of the land of Egypt. So you got his name right there. Now that's kind of important. Why is it important? Well, it's important because it's a personal God. It's very important. And I don't know if I can find this other part, but I'm going to flip around here and see if I can manage to get it. Genesis chapter 4, final verse, final phrase. This is verse 26. And to Seth, to him also there was born a son. This is the line we come out of. And he called his name Enos. Then began men to call upon the name of Yahweh. Very important. Important part of history. At that time, men began to call upon the name Yahweh. Why were they calling upon Yahweh? Well, one thing we know is Seth's older brother Abel was murdered by his older half-brother Cain. And there was danger in the world. Now let's talk about the limitations on this Bible. The Chinaman's not in here. The Japanese aren't in here. Well, we can't make a claim that they're in here. We can make a claim that both are in here, but only as they interacted with the Israelites. And we believe that Japheth traveled the earth, Japheth being the youngest son of Noah, and that he intermingled his seed with the seed of the Asiatics on the island that became known as Japan today. So the Japanese have got some Caucasoid features. They're a proud people. They love their phenotype. They don't want to change it. They want to stay consistent. They have a homogeneous society. And as a result of that, they get along better. They do better. They're a stronger nation because of it. See, they understand what to expect of each other. And the rate of sociopathy for the Japanese is only 1.7% when our rate was running 4%. At this point, because of the democratic actions, the rate has gone up, and it's approaching double that now. So instead of 1 every 25 of us being jackasses, it's like 1 out of every 12 and a half. It's almost doubled. It's not quite that, but it's approaching that. Genesis chapter 5, number 1, verse 1. First phrase, and this gives you what this whole thing is. This is the book of the generations of Adam. Now, it's in Genesis. Does that refer to the book of Genesis? Or does that refer to the entire Bible? I think it refers to the entire Bible, including the apocryphal books and most of the extra biblical books. I counted it one time, and there are references to 32 other or 36 other, I don't remember at this point, 32 references mentioned in the Bible. So if it's mentioned in the Bible, to me, it has authority. It's worth reading if you can find it. And that's the problem. A lot of those books, we don't know where they are. So this is a book about the generations of Adam, Adamkind. Now you need to understand, Adam was not the only man upon the earth. He truly was the only Adam on the earth, or Adam. There's two different words that in the Paleo-Hebrew for Adam and Adamkind. But there are also words for the other humanoids, human beings on the planet. Another species of man. It wasn't another race. You can use that term if you want. I don't like using it. I think species is far more respectful, far more accurate. And so you have two words for them as well. There's Enoshi, Enoshwi. I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying I understand all of this. But you need to understand that when Cain was thrown out of the garden, when he was evicted, he complained to Yahweh, "Where will I go? They'll kill me out there." And that is when Yahweh put a mark upon Cain to protect Cain. And basically, anyone who did anything to harm Cain suffered a sevenfold curse. That's in the Bible as well. By the way, the death of Cain is alluded to in the Bible. It's not mentioned directly. It's in the book of Genesis here. Kind of doubt I can find it just offhand. But you need to understand there's some confusing things. Now, I've got to point out right now that one of my red letter marks here, underlined, and this is important, is in Genesis chapter 5. And Enos being Seth's son, being Adam's grandson, lived 90 years, then begot Canaan, Canaan, C-A-I-N-A-N. And my red ink, I've got that word Canaan underlined. And I have in red ink next to it, not Canaanite. That's all I can conclude. He's a proper Adamic being. He's not a half-breed mixed with satanic, fallen angelic DNA like Cain was. Verse 13, and Canaan lived after he begot Mahalalel 840 years and begot sons and daughters. So Enos begot Canaan, and Canaan begot Mahalalel. These names are kind of rough for me. And it continues on with the genealogy. The reason I point this out is because there's confusion. And the Bible has got some confusing passages in it. I know that Yahweh, God, is not the author of confusion. Nevertheless, this gets to be confusing. And so a few hundred years later, you have the descendants of Cain settling in the Promised Land. And they were known as the Canaanites. And it's spelled a little different. So C-A-I-N-A-N is different than C-A-N-A-A-N, the land of Canaan. Different spellings, entirely different peoples, entirely different meanings. So what you do need to know is that this is the devil and his children. And so there are other extra biblical books. that mentioned the name Gadriel, Gadreel. Gadriel. Gadriel. Google it. You'll find it in Wikipedia. One of the 5 leaders of the fallen angels, which seduced Eve. So I know you're busy, preoccupied with this idea that Eve ate the apple, and that was the original sin. She gave it to her husband Adam, and Adam ate the apple, and that was the original sin. And of course, when Adam is confronted by their father Yahweh, Adam indirectly blames Yahweh, the woman you gave me. That is also considered the original sin. I disagree with that. I think the original sin is in Genesis chapter 6. Let's go there. Verse 1. And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born to them. No big deal, very understandable. Go forth and multiply. Populate the earth. That's a prime commandment. Verse 2. Because that verse 1 ends in a comma. That the sons of God, who are the sons of God? This is the capital letter G, God. And the daughters of men, the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, really pleasing to the eye. And they took them wives of all that they chose. Now, they didn't go to the courthouse or the church. They didn't go paying the government a fee and get a paper license. Marriage back then was the sex act. That was marriage. And so they went into not just one, but as many as they wanted. They took all that they wanted. Now, one of the teachers that I've run into that's not doing too well, I can't get him on the phone these days. He it says, took them wives. They took them wives. And this fellow pointed out to me that you don't take a wife in marriage. A wife is given in marriage. And so a father will give his daughter. It's not that you take your wife. The wife is given to you. Sounds pretty civil, doesn't it? Sounds very polite. And so he points out this in defense of the women. Because there's another fellow out there who's done a lot of reading. He's not really quite that much of a believer. I don't think he understands this. But he has a great understanding. His claim is that in all of his reading, and he's one of the most widely read guys on the planet, he cannot find any passage that indicates that the daughters of men protested this. And his contention is that the women were eager to engage them. Okay? Now, regarding Eve, we do not have good data. Okay? So it is up in the air. As far as I'm concerned, it's something that we should brainstorm. We should look to other references to get clues as to what happened. But we don't know what it was. We don't know how she was seduced. But we do know she was seduced. Why? Because that's what she says. That comes from her own mouth. That's Genesis chapter 3. Genesis chapter 3, verse 13. And Yahweh God said unto the woman, what is this that you have done? And the woman said, the serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. Okay. Added words would be is and that, So I'll remove those. And Yahweh said unto the woman, what this you have done? Question mark. And the woman said, the serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. What she was referring to is that she was seduced. Beguiled also means deceived. But the last definition in Strong's Concordance is seduced. And so basically, she engaged him in sex because he deceived her. He seduced her. That's what her claim is. We don't have good data. We don't know if perhaps she seduced him. It's one possibility. We have to consider that. We don't know if it was a knockdown, drag-out rape where she resisted completely and he attacked her. And okay, we don't know if it was that. And there is this old myth, this old saying that it's the oldest, the oldest occupation in the world. And of course, that refers to prostitution. I'm a little slow on things like that. It has to be explained to me. So somebody explained it to me at some point. I know that. Anyway, so we don't know that it might not have been an act of prostitution. There are other possibilities as well. This fallen angel, Gadriel, may have pretended he was God. Eve may have thought that she was abiding by God's will on this. We just don't know. And as far as the fruit, it doesn't say that there was an apple. It doesn't say there was an orange. It doesn't say there was a pear or that there was a banana. What one of my older brothers says to me is it was about the pear on the ground. About the two of them copulating on the ground, conceiving Cain, a half-brother. So let's move forward up to another place. It's very important. Eve says in Genesis verse 1, and Adam knew Eve his wife, knowing being carnal knowledge, knowing being having sex, and she conceived and bore Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from Yahweh. And she again bore his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of the sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. This is important. And this is a slightly confounding verse, because if you read it straight ahead, you'll see Eve is announcing, I have gotten a man from Yahweh. We do need to look at what the word man is. That's important. But the claim is Yahweh gave her the child. Was she deceived into thinking that Gadriel was Yahweh? We understand that he would disguise himself in the garden by taking powdered silver and sprinkling that all over himself so he would glitter, so he would have this different appearance, so he would stand out. One of my brothers who's deceased, he's the one that explained quite a bit of this to me. See, I figured out on my own that just reading the Bible by myself that we were dealing today in the world with those whom Yahshua failed to destroy as ordered to do by Yahweh. And that they escaped into the world, into the planet, and that we're dealing with those offspring of those people today. And that I figured out on my own, and I filled in quite a few of the blanks, and I've had some help with that too. Main point here. My brother thinks Eve had been deceived by Gadriel, and as a result became a deceiver herself. So Edwin, whom we called Andy, told me that you're deceived and you become a deceiver. So that's an axiom. That's axiomatic. That's a principle. Judge some things by it. Be aware of the fact that when you've been deceived, you're more likely to become a deceiver. Okay, so be careful of that. I mean, that's kind of a universal thing. We have to be very careful. That's why knowing the truth is so important. So that you can right your wrong thinking, so that you can be corrected, so you can have true understanding, and so you can render judgment, good judgment. We're going to proceed here a little bit further because it's important. This is a clarifying passage for me, and I'm a little slow, so my older brother was gracious enough to explain it to me 3 or 4 times before I got it. And so this is an important thing in tradition. No need for any more heat. And it's after the 1st of November, the rate on electricity's gone up. So no sense burning too much of my what they call money. There's no money today. It's all fiat currency. It's all phony money. Monopoly money. Yeah. They did their best to train us up with the game Monopoly, didn't they? Genesis chapter 4, verse 3. And in the process of time, it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto Yahweh. And Abel, his brother, half-brother, he also brought of his firstborn of his flock and of the fat thereof. And Yahweh had respect unto Abel and to his offering. It was acceptable. But unto Cain and to his offering he had not respect. And Cain was very angry, and his countenance fell. And Yahweh said unto Cain, Why are you angry? And why is your countenance fallen? If you do well, shall you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin lies at the door, and unto you shall be his desire, and you shall rule over him. And Cain talked with Abel his brother. And it came to pass when they were in the field, that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and slew him. He had a rock, an assault rock. Maybe they should have been illegal back then, assault rocks, Assault rifles. AR stands for something else, not assault rifle. It stands for the manufacturer's initials as far as I can remember. Armament something or other. And Yahweh said unto Cain, Cain's already murdered his brother. We think he took a rock and smashed his head in with it. Yahweh said unto Cain, Where is Abel your brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? And he said, meaning Yahweh, What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cries to me from the ground. And now you are cursed from the earth, which has opened her mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. Cain started off with the ability to grow crops. After this, he couldn't grow anything. The ground was cursed, wouldn't produce anything for him. Cain's descendants still suffer from that trait to this day. They aren't farmers. They don't do well with the earth. For some reason, the earth and them do not mix. But with Adam, who's named after the red earth, it goes well. Why is this important? It's because this establishes the fact that each boy had a different father. Only in that old world back then, only the eldest son was authorized to make the offering for the family. That was it. The eldest could do it. The others could not do it. The oldest was dedicated. The firstborn was dedicated among humans too. So, what we have here is a proof that Abel was fathered by Adam and Cain was fathered by Gadriel. They had two different fathers, hence each was the firstborn of their father. Each could make an offering. You've got a lot of other principles as I read this that pop to mind here. If you do not well, shall you not be accepted? So doing is kind of important. Okay? But I think this is very important. What happened to Abel? Well, we know that his blood cried out from the earth. So there's something about the blood. And I've been told by other people who don't like the Bible much that we live in a matrix. It's a computer program. So if that's the case, would not the blood be the software? Would not the DNA and the RNA be like firmware, software? Would not everything be encoded, be recorded? Perhaps supporting the theory of cellular memory. So what happened? And now you are cursed from the earth, which has opened her mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you till the ground, it shall not henceforth yield fruit to you, her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shall you be in the earth. Characteristics of the problem child, the problem children today. And Cain said unto Yahweh, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, you have driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from your face shall I be hidden, and I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that everyone that finds me shall slay me. Oh, you mean there are people outside the Garden of Eden? There's other people in the earth, and he's fearing for his life. You betcha. Because he looks different. He's a unique being created from fallen angelic DNA, satanic DNA, and Adamic DNA. And Yahweh said to him, therefore, whoever slays Cain, vengeance shall be taken upon him sevenfold. And Yahweh set a mark upon Cain, lest any finding him should kill him. Well, what does that mark upon Cain? According to the Mormon people a while back, they were Negroes. Eustace Mullins thinks that as well. I don't think so. Eustace Mullins thought they were lowlanders compared to the highlanders. Who knows exactly? I don't think Eustace read the Bible very well myself. Wonderful historian, great author, fantastic man. I highly recommend his books. And Cain knew his wife. Where did he get his wife? From the women outside of the garden. I skipped a verse. And Cain went out from the presence of Yahweh and dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. So this is good evidence. We know he went east. It was called the land of Nod, the land of wanderers, nomadic peoples. And there he took a wife, and he built cities. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch. And he built a city, and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. And to Enoch was born Irad, and Irad begot Mehulahel, and Mehulahel begot Methusael, and Methusael begot Lamech. You count that, it's the seventh generation. Lamech, seventh down from Cain. Cain's the patriarch. Lamech's patriarch. And Lamech took unto him 2 wives. The name of one was Ada, and the name of the other one Zillah. Man, when a woman makes her name into the Bible, that's a big deal. That doesn't happen very often. That's because they had a matriarchy, do you think? No. Matriarchy is not a characteristic of Israelites. Patriarchy is the characteristic of Israelites, not a matriarchy. So get that through your thick skull, that those who have a matriarchy cannot be Israelites. Israelites had a patriarchy going. But Ada and Zillah are named. Why? And Ada bore Jabal, and he was the father of such as dwell in tents, and of such as have cattle. Talented. Tent making, cattle rearing, animal husbandry, animal breeding. Talented. And his brother name was Jubal. He was the father of all such as handle the harp and organ. Talented. Obviously mathematically inclined. Music, understanding harmony, music theory, being creative. And Zillah, she also bore Tubal-Cain, an instructor of every craftsman in brass and iron, metallurgy, blacksmith. Probably had to go mine the ore, smelt the metal out, refine it, and forge it. And the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. 2 A's after the N. Naamah. Very important woman in the Bible. And Lamech said to his wives, Ada and Zillah, hear my voice. You wives of Lamech, putting them in their place, reminding them of their relationship, their family. Listen to my speech, for I have slain a man to my wounding, and a young man to my hurt. If Cain shall be avenged 7-fold, truly Lamech 70 and 7-fold. This is an allusion to the death of Cain in the Bible. It's in a book called the Book of Jasher, which means the Book of the Upright. I usually joke and say the prophet Jasher. There was no such prophet. But here what we have is Lamech stopping his wives who were encroaching upon him, ready to kill him for killing the family patriarch. He killed Cain. It was a mistake. He was out hunting. He mistook Cain for a deer and killed him. And when he and his son, his oldest boy, I'm going to guess, I think he was 17 years of age at the time, when he went there and realized what he had done, and knowing this fact, that there was a sevenfold curse on whoever slays Cain, his two wives were going to take him out. Because not only did he kill Cain, the family patriarch, who had this divine protection upon him, yes, he did have it, he also killed his oldest boy. I've slain a man for my wounding. I killed the family patriarch. I killed Cain. I thought he was a deer. And a young man for my hurt. What hurt? What hurt him most? He killed his own son. In his anguish, he threw his arms up. And when he did, he hit his own son in the head and killed him with that one blow. Not intending to do it, but doing it nevertheless. And so, his wives were going to kill him. They encroached upon him. And because they were willing to do the honor killing, if you will, to execute the judgment upon their mutual husband, because he had killed the patriarch of the family, they get their names in the book, in the Bible. Pretty famous. Tubal-Cain is famous as well. You want to say Tubal-Cain? Okay, great. Nama is very famous. We'll talk about that in the future. I'm still working on understanding this myself. Okay. Methinks thou doth protest too much, which reveals you for the sociopath that you are, which shows your guilt. Seth Rich is dead. His murder is being impeded by the FBI. They don't want to release anything about him for 66 years. They're protecting somebody. The FBI is a criminal organization, and the Department of Justice really is a Department of Injustice. Now, I don't know what to make of Seth Rich. I think he was doing the best he could do. He knew that that Bernie was being robbed, that Bernie had won several states, and they wouldn't even give him the states he had won. And Bernie got beat up, too, to make sure he sat down and kept his place, while the wicked witch of the whole world took the throne away from him. The nomination was Bernie's. And that's why Seth Rich revealed that data. And that's why they killed Seth Rich, to make an example of him. And I'm willing to bet you that he met 2 FBI agents who dispatched him on the spot. I could be wrong about that. The FBI wants 66 years for a reason. They want to get away with murder. An accessory to murder after the fact, and you're going to allow them to enforce laws against you, against the rest of us? It needs to be shut down. We didn't have an FBI for most of our country's existence. The predecessor to the FBI was created in 1913, the same year that the Jewish Anti-Defamation League was formed, whose sole weapon is to defame others. So you can't talk about them. You can't discuss anything about them. It's verboten. It's off limits. In that same year, on Christmas Eve, your Congress gave you a gift. They robbed you. They set up the mechanism by which they've been robbing you ever since. And that is, they empowered the money monopoly. The people that practice money magic. They gave the central bank They gave the charter to the Rothschilds and their ilk. And as a result, they've stolen all of your money. And they've stolen title to most of your property. They've undermined all of your institutions. So you can't turn to one to go to the other because they're all bought out. Cliff High said that we were going to ignore Washington, D.C., that government was going to become irrelevant. And I love that concept. Why? Because it's not exactly murdering them. It's not exactly taking them out in the field and bashing their heads in with a rock. It's isolating them. It's excommunicating them. It's saying, to hell with you, we want nothing to do with you. We're going to give you no power. You better stay inside that little 10 square miles there if you want to, and leave the rest of us alone. You need to understand something. You live in a police state. They've got better surveillance tools than all of the other tyrants before them. The United States of America started out with the blessings given by Israel. We've covered that. England started out with the blessings given by Israel. We've covered that, I think, adequately. What do you think? There's more things we could go into, like the heraldry. That's also in the book of Genesis. The symbols, their fates, that's also in the book of Genesis, when Israel calls his son together before he adopts the two boys of Joseph. And if you think Joseph was didn't ever existed, like a lot of people do, we found Joseph's house in Egypt. They had to excavate a field. I believe it was used for raising rice, raising some crops, and that it was flooded regularly for the purposes of raising the crops. And so they actually had to sequester it off and drain the water and dig down. And they found Jacob's house. They found his tomb. And there is a video of that. A dear friend, Rex Smith, gave me a copy of that. Oh, that's wonderful stuff. It really was good to see that. Joseph really existed. Sadly, I don't think everything that Joseph did was good, because he basically empowered Pharaoh, the original central bank, who became the lender and borrower of last resort, and as a result, 4 centuries later, had totally enslaved the Israelites inside of Egypt. You see, they were Israelites. And I know you're going to walk around saying they were Jews. No, they were Hebrews. Sounds like Jew, but is not Jew. Paleo-Hebrew was their language. They were united by that. Their forefather was Heber, Heber. And if you take away the H, make it silent, his name was Eber. Okay? He was a long time ago, way before Abraham. And so when you read in your Enemy of the Bible, yes, a group of rabbis put together the Schofield Reference Study Bible. And they used Schofield, who was an unethical attorney, as a front man to publish it. And that was out of Michigan as well. This Bible's also out of Michigan as well, by the way. Funny how Yahweh works, huh? Anyway, get this Bible. Start reading it and get familiar with it. It's going to open up and change your thinking. You're going to be programming yourself up with good stuff. What is there that you have to do? You do have to vote. You do have to give the Republicans a chance. I think the Republicans aren't any good either, especially Mitch McConnell and this McCarthy fellow. I don't like most of them. And we've got several governors, Republicans, who overreached their authority. The governor in Arizona comes from a family of organized criminals named Roscoe. He stole from the retirees in the ASRS, not giving them the cost of living allowance, and actually changing the law so that they never would get another cost of living allowance in Arizona. He's probably on the receiving end of all those monies that come out of the Arizona Department of Corrections, which I'll cover in another video. Get this Bible. Christmas is coming up. The large print, leatherette ones make good gifts. I went with brown because it was available and it was cheap. Okay, it was the cheapest price at the time. You can get the black one. That's fine. And you can also get tabs in your Bible, which will help you, if you're a beginner especially, to find books in the Bible quickly. I got mocked when I went to Bible college for one semester. I didn't make it there. Yeah, I got rejected. It's kind of funny when you think about it. You need to read the Bible for yourself. The Bible will speak to you. God will help you. Turn to Yahweh. Call upon His name. Pray to Yahweh. Ask for His wisdom. Ask for His guidance. Ask Him to show you His will for your life. Ask Him to help you to think more clearly, to make better decisions. Ask above all that He give you the ability to follow through on such decisions. Those are not easy decisions, and quite often we cannot see the good that will come from those decisions. Quite often we can't see that far into the future. I went with Creator Father God when I was in trouble, and as a result, I now have a pension. It was Yahweh who did that. I said my prayers on my birthday, the day they summarily suspended my license to practice as a psychologist, which they voted twice to reactivate and reneged both times. The liberals protect their liberal governors. They don't want the truth. They don't respect the truth. They don't understand the value of the truth. I know these are hard to live up to, these things, but you got to do the best you can. Okay, I'm going to cut this off right now, and I'm going to post this up on Dr. John Taylor Kent because this is very relevant to this election, that people need to understand. You need to elect the obvious sociopaths out of office. Yes, we're going to end up with a few Republican sociopaths. Yeah, we are. And hopefully we get the right ones that will help us take another step towards Yahweh and get ourselves out of this. My take on this is that Thomas Jefferson wrote How to Recover the Republic in the Event It Was Lost. Go read that. Thomas Jefferson read the Bible enough. He didn't like some passages in it, so he removed it from his Bible. He removed the mysteries, the miracles. And he said that Jesus was a good guy without the miracles in there. He didn't find those very credible, so he removed it, I guess, as an exercise to see whether or not it still held together and made sense. And he says it does. Even without those miracles, the thing has good value to it. Thomas Jefferson told you how to recover the Republic. You have to do that. It's not going to be easy. Not at all. So we have to understand that the enemy has taken over Washington, D.C., and these state governments as well, and they own all these institutions. They own most of the place at this point. They've stolen it all, though. I want you to think about that. And they've deprived us through a series of frauds, which we still do not understand and still have not declared ourselves free of yet. There's no statute of limitations on fraud. No statute of limitations on murder. Let's solve Seth Rich's crime, the crime of murdering Seth Rich. Let's be honest with ourselves. Let's stop being the people of the lie. Let's start being the people of the truth. Vote your conscience, and your conscience should tell you, vote the better guy, the better man, the better woman in. Man, have we got some women running for office. Some are pretty doggone good looking too. I know we're all going to be having comparisons of who's got the prettiest governor, you know. Well, the South Dakotans love their governor, and she's wonderful. And I think Michigan's going to love their new governor. And she blows my mind. I mean, she's an iron worker, and look at her. Prettiest iron worker I've ever seen. And Carrie Lake's okay. I don't like the Pebbles hairstyle. I just don't like the hairstyle. She's a good-looking woman, that's for sure. But does she actually have the mettle to take on the Arizona state government, especially the Arizona Department of Corrections, and set things right? I don't know. Is she going to do right by the people? I just don't know. And I pray that my brothers and sisters in Alaska join with me and get rid of the wicked witch of the West, that senator. Man, we want Murkowski gone. We didn't want her to start off with. It was horrible that her father saddled us with that witch. Don't be deceived. Don't let them gaslight you. Realize that they are evil. Realize that pure evil exists. Realize that there are children of God on this planet. Yahweh, Creator Father, decided to have a family. And sadly, Satan and his minions, the 200 angels, they decided to have a family here too. And so it is a fight between good and evil. They want us dead. In the last century, they killed 200 million of us. In this century, they're getting ready to do much more than that. They may have already done it. Yahweh bless America.